Nate, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, Porter?
Hey, it's going good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, guys, this is Nate, the legend. I have been trying to get Nate. He is a busy man, and so we are not going to waste his time. But Nate, how are you doing today? Are
Doing
you
good. I just dropped the kids off. Had two kids to drop off at a bus stop, two kids to drop off at a preschool. I'm just running around in the morning. So
gotcha? So you're very busy.
yes, for sure. For sure.
So Nate, let's just jump right into it. I don't want to waste any time, but let's just get a little background from you. Like where are you from?
Okay. I'm from Utah. I'm actually from northern Utah, if you know, like Logan. I'm just west of Logan in a little town called Garland. So really close to Idaho. Do you just want me to, what do you want me to say? Like I'll just say whatever you need.
Okay, so that yeah, like where are you from? Let's talk about like what do you do for work before you got into Rank and Rent or whatever?
Yeah. So my background, I'm kind of in sales, but it's indirectly. So I worked for a network marketing company. It's called USANA. They sell supplements and vitamins, and I'm in the department that helps the people do the recruiting and the selling and those types of things. So had a lot of good experience from that in terms of helping people. And basically, in working with them, I realized, you got to have multiple streams of income. You got to have other things coming in just in case, especially nowadays, right? You don't know what's going on with the economy and prices, inflation, all that stuff. So anyway, I knew there was something that I needed to do. Did some research, found a group, joined that group, got a lot of good, like a good base, good understanding and some good training there. And then I saw Nick had posted about the Rank and Rent, this group here. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to jump in and see what it is and just kind of progress from there. I knew I needed more training, knew I needed more expertise and more help. So just kind of continued down that path and here we are.
Gotcha. So you joined another group before this one, and was it kind of opposite? Was it Rank then Rent? Was it like the same kind of idea where you rent it first then build it out later?
It was, so they kind of just left it open. It was almost like, here's the skill set. So I could understand how like SEO worked. But they didn't really go into like Google ad training or anything like that. It was more just, here, go do this now. And you have the ability to build websites and you have the ability to get leads for people. And you have like, it was basically just open.
Yeah.
And so that's where I learned like SEO and kind of how to build a basic website, those types of things. But for me, like, I just needed a little bit more direction. Cause for me, I was like, well, geez, I can do whatever with this now. What direction do I go? So this kind of helped me understand, like, I need money fast. Like I don't have a lot of extra money to just throw around and try to figure things out. So I was penny pinching and everything, trying to get all that done. And then once I saw this, I was like, okay, this makes sense. I can invest a little bit because it sounds like my return's going to be way better. So yeah. That's how I got to here.
That's cool, man. So how long have you been in? Because you're in the Digital Landlords group, right? Like you're
Correct.
Obviously. So how long was that time period that you joined the group to the point where you got your first deal?
Joined the Digital Landlords group.
Yeah.
So this is where I'd say, like, learn from my mistakes. Okay. So it was May of last year. So I've been in the Digital Landlords groups a little over a year. I guess now it's about a year, almost a year and a half. And so I joined in. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to be the success story that like 1 weekend, I'm going to get 4 or 5 deals. I remember I was on a business trip and I'm like, oh, there's another addition to my story. I'm going to, sell on my business trip and, I'll be able to tell this exciting thing. And then like, I just got super busy and got super sidetracked. I treated it like a hobby. Until finally I was like, you know what, this is not working. To treat it like a hobby, I got to start digging down in and really going for it. So I made that decision in August of this year, the end of August. And then I just hooked my first business owner. I think it was the end of last month, the end of September. So just a couple of weeks ago. So it took about, once I started really digging in and doing what you need to do, it took about a month.
Okay. So, I mean, it was pretty, when you finally got serious about it, it was pretty fast, right? Like it was, I mean, it took a little bit of time, but it was like when you actually sat down and started doing stuff, it was pretty fast. Yeah. So what would you say, what was like causing you to not focus on it? Was it like job? Was it family? Like what was that thing that was like holding, what was your why but type of
Yeah.
situation?
It's kind of interesting. So my why is, I mean, I'm not. I think this is a positive and a negative, right? I'm not strapped for cash. I'm not in that moment or that area where like I need to have the money right away. And I think that I was comfortable, right? So I'm like, I'll just do it. But then I realized like my why is to spend time with my family and to take my family places, and also like to be more comfortable.
Yeah.
And so I was doing the opposite of that. I was like taking all this time, and I think I had this mental block of, I can't spend money. I don't want to spend any money. And I was nervous because I hadn't had success, with Google Ads before. So I'm like, I don't want to just throw away a ton of money and then have it not be successful. So I had those mental blocks. And I think finally I was just like, you know what, these mental blocks are keeping me in the same position that I'm not super happy with. And I came to that realization. And once I came to that realization, I was like, you know what, I got to do what it takes, stay up late or wake up early, whatever time I can fit in during the middle of the day, to call the business owners instead of using, my busyness as an excuse, which I think I was doing. So anyway, the busyness was the excuse, but now the business is kind of the reason why, so I can spend more time with the family and do more things with them and stuff like that.
So yeah, it was kind of the reason why, but now it's like, now that's why I want to do it, is because I'm so busy. You're trying to like pull back a little bit. That's awesome, dude. So what was the niche that you went into, if you don't mind sharing? Like, was it, I mean, if you don't feel comfortable sharing, you don't need to, but.
No, it's fine. I chose concrete. Concrete seemed to be the one that was like the most talked about. So I was like, you know what, it seems to work. If I do my due diligence right, it seems like I'll be able to get it. And so I just chose that one because it seemed easy. And then once I start things going here, then I'll probably look into other little more obscure ones.
Yeah, I love it. And so how hard was it to find a city? Was that something that, like, I guess, let me rephrase this question. What was the hardest part about your deal, other than like getting started? Like, was it your due diligence? Was it your prospecting? Like, what was the hardest part for you?
Prospecting. So I feel like because of my mindset and that block that I had about I can't spend money, I don't want to spend money, like I would do due diligence like crazy. And I think that was part of what got me into that, treating it like a hobby, was because I would do the due diligence. I'd, get the city that I wanted to go in, but then I'd get to the point where I'd even set up the ad and I'd like, oh, can I do this? And I started second guessing myself. So I said, okay, you know what, let me get a couple more. And I would just do due diligence after due diligence after due diligence. So I was able to, by the time I was like ready to pull the trigger and just start calling business owners, like I feel like I had gotten an idea of at least what a decent city is. And so I started running ads in 2 cities specifically. And one of them didn't pan out. One of them just I got a few calls, but they were more like inquiries, not so much people who were interested, and somebody wanted a job. So I was like, and that's all I got from that one. And this other one, I was getting leads coming in. So I'm like, okay, I'm focusing on this one. I'm going to set that one aside and pause that campaign, do it later. And I'm just going to jump in and get a business owner hooked on this other city in concrete.
That's so awesome, dude. It's funny you say that, because prospecting is like one of the hardest things. And I feel like when you first start, like I remember I watched videos after videos, and I thought I was doing something. I was like, oh dude, I'm working, I'm getting stuff done. And then you get a deal and you're like, dude, I wasted so much time on stuff that like I didn't need to worry about.
Yep.
And so
exactly.
it's such a game change, and you can't, it's hard to tell somebody, like people watching this are going to be like, I don't know what you mean, but like people that have gotten deals, you're like, dude, we all kind of do this. We go in this phase where we're because I was thought about Google. I was like, dude, how am I supposed to like Google? Like, I feel like I'm going to get a million suspensions because I don't know what I'm doing. I've never even like thought about SEO. Like there's so many things that were just like so iffy. But then finally I was like, dude, let's just try it. Like, worst thing that happens is I completely fail, whatever. But like, there's so many people in the group like yourself that have gotten deals. Like, it's going to work, but maybe it's going to take me a little bit longer. Yeah. But that was like my biggest thing, was like, just do it. Like, just kind of just have that leap of faith and just do it.
Yep.
So that's awesome. So what, with prospecting, how did you kind of, overcome that little speed bump, you would say, of like finding the right guy? Did you go through a couple guys, or did you find the right guy the first time? Like, how did that go about?
Yeah, so I made my list, right? I did the due diligence. I went through and found everybody I could that looked like they were paying for something. Even as I was doing that, I found a couple others that maybe I came across their Facebook page or something like that in the area. And I called probably like 7 or 8 business owners, and some of them initially were just like, no, that's not for me. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to try to have the argument. I'm just going to find the business owner that's going to be interested. I got one guy that he said, yeah, that sounds great. And I started sending him leads, and I sent him like 3 or 4, and I kept trying to follow up, and he just ghosted me. And so, and I had gotten like to the end of my list. So I'm like, well, now I've had at least these 4 leads, and there's more that are going to be coming in. I got to find somebody for him. So I almost got like desperate, because I'm like, I think it shifted for me too. I'm like, wait, I'm paying for this.
Yeah.
If I just let these go, I'm throwing away my money, right? So I was like, I gotta do this some more. So I actually went in, because I had run out on my list. I went in and did another round of like finding people, and this new guy came up, and he was hungry. He started like in June. And so he didn't show up for some reason on the first go around. And the second go around, I called him. He's like, yeah, I'm interested. I know things are going to slow down. I need to supplement this thing. And so I had those 4 people. I called them back. I'm like, hey, did so-and-so ever get back to you? They're like, no. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. He ghosted me too. Let me get you connected with this other person, get you taken care of. Yeah. And one of them was a good deal. It's like $6,000, and they were ready to go. And one was like a $500, just they needed some leveling on their driveway or something like that. And so that wasn't as enticing, but the third one was like a $3,000. So there was some good money in those 3-4 leads. And the business owner, like I sent him those 3, he called me back and he's like, so I'm interested. Like you've already sent me these 3, obviously this works. What's going on? And so, like you said, you were saying this before, like you don't want to give them too much information. And I wasn't prepared to have this conversation at the time. It was just a phone call. And I was just going to follow up on the leads. Like, yeah, how's it going? Did you get it closed? Like all that. And I was listening in, right? So I knew that this was happening, but I didn't want him to know that I was listening in. Yeah. I'm like, so how did it go? All this stuff. And he goes, yeah, so I'm interested. So what's next? I'm like, well, let's schedule something. I'd like to sit down, maybe 10, 15 minutes. 20 minutes max, we'll figure if this is the right fit. He's like, okay, so yeah, like if it is the right fit. And he just kept asking questions like, you know what, he's chomping at the bit right now. I'm just going to jump on this. Kind of went off script a little bit, right? And I just said, this is what I do. I do a flat fee. I do a XYZ, how I'd set it up. And we negotiated a couple other things, and because he didn't have a Facebook page, he doesn't have a map pack spot. He didn't have those things. So I'm like, I can help you out with those too. So anyway, it expanded a little bit from there, but it was definitely not what I was expecting, not how I was expecting it to happen. But I think there was a little bit of that desperation, and then the connection was made, and we're happy so far. So this is good.
Awesome. Well, and I want to hit on one thing, like before we move on to this, but I love the fact that you said that you had to keep like going back and like calling people. Can you hear me still?
Yep.
Okay. But like, I've done that. There has been a few times where you call your list, nothing happens, and you have to just keep going back. So people watching this, like if you're having a problem prospecting, like don't be afraid, go back and recall these people, because sometimes you call people at the worst time. Like you might call somebody and they just had to fire an employee and they're not having it today. You know what I'm saying? And then maybe you wait a week and then you call them again and they're like, hey, actually, like it's been a good day. Like I've actually been looking to find more work. So don't just like, sometimes they're rude to you and you just want to just hang them the bird, but just like keep them there. And then if you don't find anyone, go back to them, say, hey, I know I caught you. I know you said no, but like, I really think this could help you out, and keep moving, because this worked with Nathan, right? Like Nathan's done this, and I've done this a few times, right? Where you have to just keep going back, because sometimes you'll do the whole list over and over, and sometimes they won't answer, sometimes they will. So that's a great point that you brought up, because I think sometimes we call it once, we're like, there's no business owner. And it's like, well, did you talk to him? Did you for sure get to know? Like, I would not move on until you for sure get to know from at least every single business owner within that proximity, because you do all this work for it. You don't want to just give it to somebody else, because if you don't do it, then I might do it. Right. And it's like, just don't give up on things so easily. So be persistent. I love that point. What was one thing that you would tell your future, or not your future, but like your present self, like a year ago? Like, what is a little bit of advice that you would tell yourself starting out?
So for me, I mean, like I said, I still have my full-time job, right? I still, and luckily that's somewhat flexible where I can make some phone calls during the day. I got 5 kids, and a wife, and everybody's got sports and all these activities. So I could use that as an excuse. And I think I did use that as an excuse. And if I were to go back a year, I'd say, look, like treat it like a business, set those hours and be disciplined. I can do my due diligence at night when people aren't going to want to get a phone call, 10 o'clock at night. I can do it then. I can do it in the morning time, but make sure that I have those lists. So during the day, at whatever time is working, whether it's at noon, whether it's, later in the day, what I did was I have somebody, and I have a couple other ads going on right now. I'm calling out the business owners and those things. So I have somebody in the Pacific. This is how I've set it up in the Pacific time zone. Because for me, I'm in Mountain. So then that way I can call them, when it's close to the end of the day and I know that they're still going to be working for me. So if it's 5 o'clock my time, I know it's 4 o'clock theirs. They might be wrapping up on a job or something. So I'll call them. And in the morning time, I can call like the East Coast or the Central time. And I won't call them in the afternoon because I don't want to bother them during dinner. So for me, I've kind of set it up so I have strategically found people that are in different time zones so I can call during different times of the day and not feel like I'm interrupting them. And that's just something that I think helps me. But I think the biggest thing is just setting aside the time and then making sure that, again, so when I have the time for phone calls, I'm not like, let me just go back and double check this guy's Facebook page. Let me just go make sure that I know who this person is. Oh, let me just go look at this. And because I've done that before too, where I had an hour and I wasted the entire hour because I was so nervous to pick up the phone to just make the phone call that I'm like, well, let me check the email, make sure that's right. Let me check this and make sure that's right. Let me just double check this other thing I'm thinking of. Like, no, just call, just pick up the phone, do the calls. Cause once you get that first one, the next 10, if you have to make 10 are so much easier. So that's a lot of advice, but if I were to go back a year, those are the things I would say, like, do this now. So that way in a year, you'll be in a much better situation.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And with picking up the phone, I think it never gets easier. Like, I feel like when I don't do it for a while, I get just as nervous. I feel like it's like I just started out, but I would say when you do it long enough, you hit every like roadblock where whether you're like you get yelled at. So that was like a fear. Well, you get yelled at. You didn't die because you got yelled at. Like, people didn't answer. I mean, that was a fear. Okay, that one's done. Like, you start to like overcome these like fears that I don't know why they're fears. I don't know why we care so much about what people think because we don't even know them. But the longer you do it, the more you kind of hit these things and it just doesn't phase you as much. Like, I had a guy when I first started out, I was making calls. I called someone in the group, their website, and they were clowning me. They were like playing along with me. And then finally, like, no, bro, like, I'm actually in the group too. And I was like, it's so embarrassing. Like, whatever. But it happens. Like, until you do it enough, you don't know what to look for. You don't know if this is a lead gen site. You don't know if this is like a solid business owner or if this is like a hobby concrete guy, right? Like, the more you do it, the better you become. So I think that's awesome. How did you overcome that? Like, what was like in your head, like what motivated you to get on the phone? Was it like, I got to do it now or I'm never going to do it? Like, what were you telling yourself to get on the phone?
Well, so this goes back to that first group, right? Like, I had learned other ways to generate some income, and it turned out that I was still trading my time for dollars. I actually accidentally got hired on as staff for somebody, and I didn't try to do that. That wasn't what my goal was. And so for me, it was, look, I don't want to keep trading my time. I don't want to end up having deadlines on top of my job to try to get these other people these things that they need to get. And so I cut those off. And for me, it was the motivation of, look, like this. So not that I'm not doing anything with this guy now, because obviously I'm still working with them. We're still in contact almost daily, getting his Facebook page up and all that stuff. And so I think we're developing a strong relationship. But for me, it's about like this. We set it up so it was a weekly deal. He wanted to do a weekly amount instead of monthly. And so every week I have that money coming in. And for me, it's like, look, like I've done the work. I put in a little bit of an investment. This was my first job, right? So I pulled some money out of my pocket to help get this going. Now I have some money that I can use from this guy, which I've already done a lot of the work there. Now we can go do the work here and use this money to reallocate it over to here. And so I'm earning this money without having to trade my time as much. And I can use the money that's coming in to grow the business even more. And, obviously I'm not super efficient with it. I'm sure that there's mistakes that are being made and all that stuff, and I'll learn and I'll grow. But it's all about, for me, it's about not continuing to trade the time for the money and being able to still help people, to be able to have that money coming in and to be able to expand and do more with the time that I have.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally so true when it comes to that. Like, I think I always thought like this is quick cash. Like when you first see this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so you build the website, you rent it out, and you're making $1,500 a month or 2,000. Well, you don't think about the cost that kind of goes into the whole thing. But if you're treating this as a business, you got to think like, I'm not going to be profiting for a little while, because if you want to grow anything, you're going to like kind of just be like even for a while, right? Until the point where like now you have like 10 or 15 websites that are bringing in 20,000, right? Or whatever. Then it starts to get really fun. But like that one deal, like, yeah, you may be getting $1,500, but it's not as exciting, right? Like it's not that quick cash. So this isn't like, I love what you said, like I stopped treating this as a hobby and started treating this as a business. And I think when a lot of these people that are maybe even on this call, like if you stop treating this as a side hustle, and I know that Nick sometimes phrases it as a little side hustle, but like, and you can get a couple deals, but like if you're not serious about this, like there are people that are taking this seriously and that are way better at SEO, way better at prospecting, way better at due diligence, and they are just going to kick your butt, right? Like we're all kind of in the same space, which is like a blessing but a curse, because there's your neighbor that's right there that's improving and you're not, so it's a very good thing. But also, this is the greatest group. Like I don't know any other business that does this. Like I don't know, I've seen concrete guys that they sit on Facebook and they sit there and chat about the bricks they've let, or the patios that they poured. But like this is the coolest thing, because we're literally doing this together. Like any questions that you guys have, Nathan's done it. Any questions that I've had, I've gone to people like Nathan and said, hey, like what are you doing? Like how can I be better? Or like I have a family too, like how did you overcome that? Like this is like the greatest space, and I don't know why a lot of us don't take advantage of this, because it's pretty amazing. Right?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it. I posted after I got the job, because I was like, I'm kind of one of those silent lurkers, right? Like I'll go through and I'll search the group for questions, because I figured that most of the questions that I have probably been asked before. And so I search it and I utilize the expertise that we have, because there's a lot of people on here that are way smarter than I am, that have a lot more experience than I do. And you know what, if I can lean on that expertise, if I can lean on that experience that they have, and the mistakes that they made or the things that they found out before I have to go in and do it, I'm going to do it. And like you said, like this is the best group to do that in.
I know. Well, and Nick even says it, like I've spent millions of dollars in ads, like so you don't have to make the same mistakes that I've made. And it's like, dude, that's awesome. Like now I don't have to spend 5 or 6 years. Like I literally, if I take this seriously, I can move a lot faster than Nick could, right? Because he's done it for how long? He's done all the wrong things to do, and he's done all the good things to do. And he literally lays it out word for word. Literally, I remember like doing my call and it was word for word, and I got a deal. I was like, son of a gun. Like, are you serious? Like it really does work. Like it's the craziest thing.
Yep.
Okay, last question. What was the most like fulfilling part about your deal? Like what was like an aha moment? You're like, okay, like this is it's true that this model works. Like what was that point for you?
So it was immediately after we hung up, me and that business owner, after he called back, he's like, dude, what's going on here? I want in. Like and again, there was a lot of work that was done, and it had been the most work that I'd put in. I mean, obviously, where I actually started running the ads, and I was actually calling the business owners, and like it was the first time that I had actually really put out the effort for it. So I know that there was some luck there with it being my first time that I really went gung ho. But I also feel like once I made that connection, once we got that deal, I was like, dude, I'm helping somebody, right? Like this guy needs help. He's probably struggling. He's probably trying to figure out, if he doesn't have a Facebook page, he doesn't have a map pack, he doesn't have a website, he doesn't have these things. He's just going by word of mouth, and it's probably trickling in, but he's hungry, and I'm able to help him out. And by helping him out, then I'm going to be rewarded as well. So that for me was the biggest aha moment, was like it clicked where I'm like, yeah, it's not this thing that's just out there like, yeah, you're helping people, yeah, you'll make money to help people. No, like I'm actually doing it now.
Mhm.
And it felt really good. And so now I want to do it some more. And then once I get those other few, then I'm going to want to do it some more. And then, then I can go and I can help people by, hiring them on, right? Because people need money. And so anyway, that's where I'm at. It's all about helping people, and about like, this is a model where I can have a lot of effect on people in a lot of different ways, in a very, very good way, if I can be consistent and continue to do this. So I don't know if that answered your question directly, but that's kind of where my thought process is right now. I'm super excited about the possibilities.
Well, that's cool. And I think you have to have that mentality. Like, you have to be wanting to help people if you want to be a good business owner or whatever. Like, your reputation is on the line, and like, people, who did I talk to? I think I interviewed Brad the other day, and we were talking about how people talk. Like, a lot of these business owners that you talk to, they know each other. And if you put a bad taste in one of their mouths and they're sitting at a job pouring concrete and they're talking crap on you, then you're going to literally lose 3 or 4 business owners like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to be wanting to help people if you want to be successful down the road too. Like, it's not like this, oh, I'm never going to see this guy. Well, this guy's friends to this guy, and now you're really in trouble. But I want to answer this one question. I had someone the other day, he kind of, he had a problem, and he felt like there were some things that maybe we were doing that were like unethical. And I think he thinks that there was maybe like when you post the one pager, when you do a website it's not a real website, but you're calling a business owner and you're telling them you have a website, like you're kind of like fibbing a little bit, right? And I get where that could be like a problem, especially like, hey, I want to do business honestly. I want to do this. I want to be like a good guy, whatever. And I felt like that all kind of goes through your head at some point until you understand like what we're doing. Like, for the longest time, I felt like I needed to hide that it was a one pager, and that I needed to, like, I don't know. I don't know if you've ever felt this, but like, I just felt like I needed to kind of like be very secretive about how I was doing what I was doing until I actually had the website up. Well, come to find out, they don't even care. Like, a lot of the business owners, if you actually tell them, say, hey, just like yourself, I don't go into an area and pour a slab of concrete before I sell it, right? Like, no one would do that. No one goes into an area, say, hey, here's an open field, I got a 20 by 20, do you guys want to come pick it up? Like, no one does that. But for us, we think that we need to go build it and then sell it the same way, but we don't. Like, it's the same thing. And when I told a business owner that, he was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I get why you would do like this one pager that's not actually the website, but you're going to build the website. And so I don't know if this guy is ever going to watch this video, but like, that was something that I don't know if you've had thoughts about, or people that have, but it is ethical. I promise you. Like, we're doing things, we're not trying to finagle Google. We're not trying to like go behind things, because one, if you do something wrong with Google, you're going to get suspended, right? Like, if you have suspicious payment and you're trying to finagle it, you're going to get suspended. Like, we're going to build the website out. We're not doing things that are weird, right? Like, we're the middleman for someone else. And when I think of it, and you actually get your first deal, there's not a question in my mind whether or not I'm helping somebody, because they tell you, they're like, dude, you've made me like 50 grand. Right. And they don't even care. Like, they don't care where it's coming from, because Angie's doing the same thing we are. The only difference is we're doing it one-on-one with someone, and we're actually changing their lives. So I don't know. I want to ask you, have you had any like thoughts of that? Like, has that ever been like a thing where you've been like, oh, like that's kind of weird. Like, I don't know why we do like a one pager, or have you just been kind of like the whole time you've been like, yeah, it makes sense?
Yeah. I think with the background, right. And with the other group, I built websites, and I paid for the URL, and I paid for the web hosting, I did all that. And then I didn't do my due diligence right. And so I just wasted money getting this permanent site for maybe possibly sometime in the future. And like, that to me doesn't make sense from my perspective. And I'm not helping anybody because it's not getting out anywhere.
Yeah.
And so for me, I look at it as, look, this is a trial run, right? Like, it's not going to be something I'm going to continue on forever. It's a trial run. I don't want to invest a lot of time and effort and money into something I don't know is going to work. And I think most business owners especially are like that. They'll try it out, and if it works, then they'll pour into it. But I don't think people are going to jump right in and just start pouring money into something. I think even with us, there's some hesitancy with the person who's like, well, I'm on Angie's list. What's the difference between you and Angie? And so we had to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And so there was, I mean, he was gung ho about it, but there was some hesitation. I think that if we can not dip our toe in, but like do the work a little bit so that we can see if it's going to be beneficial. And once we realize it's going to be beneficial, then we can go through and really build it out in a robust way, instead of, like you said, pouring the concrete and then saying, hey, who wants this? It's like, no, we got to test it out and see what's going on. And then once we get something, then we can do the work. So that's the way I've looked at it. And maybe it's because of the experience I've had in the last few years, but I don't think I've ever questioned if it was ethical or not. It just seemed to make sense for me.
Yeah, and I felt like I've had thoughts of it, because I mean, you get doing it and you start landing deals, and it's crazy because, like, if you do the pre-sale, you get money before you do any work. Like, really, like you do, or you're getting paid before, and you could, like, they're getting the jobs. And that's the thing, is you got to understand is, like, you're not, even if you don't go out and build the website, say you just keep the one pager, well, you're not lying to them, because one, if they're getting the jobs, they're happy. That's all that you promise them, is you're going to get the jobs. That's fine. For you, you're not going to profit that $1,500. You're going to profit maybe 500, because you're going to spend 1,000 in ads. So you're taking the hit more than they are, right? Yeah. As long as that you're getting the jobs. And if it comes down to it, if they don't close jobs, they're going to drop your butt anyways. So, like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to just like scam them into 2 years and just take every dime they have. It's like, if they're not happy with it, they'll drop you next month. Like, it's not like you're ripping anybody off. But I just want to address that. I don't even know if that's even a problem, but I just think there are times when you land a deal so fast, you're like, dude, that was like stealing candy from a baby. Like, really, like, I just got made $1,500 and I don't even have a website yet. I don't even know how to make a website. So
yeah, I'll tell you. So for me, it was with the people calling in. I felt like I needed to like hide something from them. And finally, when like my BO, he ghosted me and I had to find someone else, I'm like, I'm going to eat crow a little bit. And I'm going to call these people. Maybe they'll be upset, but who cares, right? They need a job done. If they don't have it filled, then I can still help them out too. So I just was upfront with them. I said, yeah, I'm a marketing guy. I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm trying to connect people like you to people who can help you out. So I found another person, and once I realized, like, I don't need to hide anything. I don't have to be totally upfront, right? I don't need to say, well, I have this website that there's this, and I have this and I'm doing that. I just say, look, I'm a marketing guy. I'm trying to get you your job done. To the BOs, I'm a marketing guy. I'm trying to get you more leads, and that's what I do. So I feel like you can be honest with them, but you don't have to be like 100% transparent about everything, because they don't, like you said, they don't care. They get the leads, they close them, they make money, they're happy.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing is we have to think about too, is like, if you're not going to take this as a business, if you're not going to have a business mindset, someone is going to abuse you and use you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've done this before, where like you feel like, oh, I didn't get them leads, or I didn't promise them, so I'm going to send them their money back. Well, you just took the hit. Like, you literally just took the $1,500 hit. Like, you can't be so Mr. Nice Guy, because you're literally going to use your whole budget just trying to keep these people happy, right? Like, some months are slow, some months are high. Sometimes you're making money and sometimes you're losing money, but like, we have to treat this as a business. And that's like what I feel like you've really, like, it's clicked for you, is you're like, I'm taking this serious now. Like, this is like not my side gig. Like, I've noticed, like, you're prioritizing, you're a busy man, you have a family, you have a wife, like, you have all these things and you're making it work. And that's when it finally clicked for you. And I think every one of us need to just kind of like internalize that, like, no more, like, whatever I got to do to make this my full-time gig, I'm going to do it. So awesome. Okay. Let me just see. Do I have any questions? I don't know if I do. Let's see. Any more questions? How about we go for like a couple more minutes? If you guys have any questions, we have 18 people on. So if you guys have any questions for Nate, then let's do it. Okay. Jamar said, being a family man, what's been your biggest challenge juggling that, the main job and growing Rank and Rent?
Yeah. So Jamar, for me, it was just prioritizing my time. I wasn't good at prioritizing my time. And what I did is I blamed others for that. Like, my wife wanted to spend time alone at night. Like, and I started getting mad at that. I'm like, no, I need to build my business. I said, wait a minute. No, it's all on me to make sure that I'm setting up my time so that, the nook and crannies that I have in my day, I can use those instead of, instead of playing a game on my phone, instead of watching the show that I watch, instead of doing that, like I can use the time to do the due diligence at night, right? I can do the due diligence early in the morning, or if I have East Coast people and I'm, here in Mountain Time, I can make phone calls at 7 a.m. or 6:30. I can call not too early, but it's basically finding those times where I can still go to my kids' soccer game. I'm coaching their soccer games. I don't know how I got to doing that because I've already been enough, but I'm coaching their stuff, running errands, spending time with the family, doing the job. Like there's still little pockets of time where you can do the work. You can pick up a phone and make 2 phone calls in 10 minutes. And everybody can find 10 minutes in their day, right? Even if you're only making 2 calls a day, you're still doing something, right? And at night, if you're spending 30 minutes and just doing some due diligence for 30 minutes, do that, right? Just extend your time where you can, eliminate some of the things that are time wasters. And I think that's what you got to do. And then for me, it was also, like you just said, Porter, it's instead of treating this as a side hustle, because if I treat this as a side hustle, then I'm gonna burn myself out after a few years, keeping my full-time job and doing all these other extracurricular activities and this rank and rent. So I need to make this a priority so that I can free something up. And if I free my full-time job up, then that gives me a lot of time to be able to do a lot of things, whether it's rank and rent, whether it's other pursuits, whether it's more time with the family. So for me, it's more about the long-term goal, but finding those niches of time right now where I can use them effectively. And I still waste time, right? I'm not perfect at it, but I'm not wasting as much.
Well, and I love that you said that, because I think I do the very best when I'm busy. Like, and it's like when I have a million other things, I prioritize my time so well that I'm like, if I want to get this done, I like that hour at my computer. It's probably like 4 hours on a slow day.
Yep.
Like, I think we are so funny. I don't know if it's just us as humans, but we like, if we have a whole day, we get nothing done. Like, it's the craziest thing. Like, I remember just sitting there. I have like 6 hours. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get my water set up. I'll get my pen, and then I'll get kind of snacky, or I'll have to go to the bathroom. And I spend the whole time just getting ready. But if I have 2 hours or like an hour and that's all I have, I like turn my phone off and I just like go to town for like an hour. And I'm like,
Yep.
dude, I've got all my work done in like an hour.
Yep.
And it blows my mind.
I'm
You
the
know,
same.
it's the weirdest thing ever, but like, being busy is almost an advantage because you learn to prioritize your time. People that don't have a lot going on, they treat this as a side hustle. They're like, oh, I'll do that in an hour, or I'll do that later tonight.
Yep.
You don't. So
Exactly.
I love it. Okay. I don't know if it's Herman or Herman. I don't know how you say it, but he says, when running ads, where do you go to get the temporary domain until you sell the one pager, build out the site, and purchase the actual domain?
For me, I go to Weebly. So at Weebly.com, you can go sign up for a free site. I mean, it has their name in it. It's like whatever, concrete.weebly.com or whatever, but nobody cares about that. So it's just to have something to direct people to. And I know that it's free for me if I go do it that way. And I'm sure there's other sites that have that availability. But Weebly is also pretty easy to build into. It's pretty upfront and easy to piece together. So for me, it's Weebly.
Yeah, Weebly is a good one. And what I didn't know is there's a different so there's Weebly Designer, and then there's like Weebly Square, or what, like they're like the same thing, but Weebly Square, whatever, is the one that gives you the free one. Weebly Designer, it gives you more tools, but it doesn't give you a free. And I spent the longest time, I couldn't figure out how to get a free one until I figured out there was like kind of like a small difference. So if you guys do have a question with that, like, let me know, because I literally wasted like a couple weeks trying to figure out how to get a free domain. I should have just paid for one. I was like, dude, I spent more time just wasting time. So if you can't figure it out, just get a domain. It doesn't matter. You'll end up using it later. But yeah, Weebly's awesome. Gabriel, he said, how many leads? Oh, he said, okay. He replied to someone else, and the guy previous said, what do you say to a prospect if they ask how many leads can you guarantee? And then Gabriel said, how many leads can you handle? So I think he was answering that guy's question, like, how many leads can you handle? Like, whatever, you know what I'm saying? I think that's really actually a good comeback. Because I think sometimes they get pretty cocky and they think that they need that many jobs. Say, it's not about the quantity, it's the quality, sir. Okay. So just start closing deals. Stop worrying about it. Okay, well, anything else that you'd like to add? I that's all the questions that I have, but thanks for being on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like it's just going out and doing it, right? Like you have all the help that you need. There's all the resources that you need to get out there and start is here. And if you don't have it or you can't find it, there you ask the question and there's plenty of people that are here that are willing to help. Like I scroll through, and if there's something I've felt like I haven't been able to answer because I haven't been able to close a lead right up until now. And so now like I feel like I can kind of pour into it a little bit more. And there's so many people I feel in this group that are willing to share their expertise that there's really no excuses to not have success. And there's so much out there, and there's so many niches, so many cities. There's a lot of opportunity. So I'm gonna go get my piece, and there's enough for everybody to get theirs. That's why we're so helpful here, I feel. So just get out there and do it. Just treat it like a business. Start setting those times up and doing the work.
Let's get it done. I love it. And one last thing is, Nick told me this one time where he said there was a time when I did this and I didn't want anyone to know my niche. I didn't want people to know my city. Like he's like, I was so secretive. And then he's like, that's not the answer. It's like, it's not going to help. People are going to find your city, whether you like it or not. Like, don't be so prideful that you think that we're going to steal your whatever niche. Like I probably won't even go into it because it doesn't interest me. You know what I'm saying? Like, but just be open about it. Like obviously, like there's things that you do that I couldn't do what Nathan does just because of personalities. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe he's just a little more bold than I am, and I can't do what he does. But don't be so prideful that you're like so scared to share things, because we're all here. We're all doing the same thing, and someone's going to get it whether we like it or not. So yep. I freaking love it. Okay. Well, thanks for hopping on. But we will see you guys next time. Thanks, Nate.